Welcome to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm your host, Alistair Hawthorne. If you're new here, we delve into the finest whodunits, inspired by the Queen of Crime herself, Agatha Christie. Today, we're embarking on a brand new original tale featuring the inimitable Hercule Poirot. Settle in with a cup of tea, dim the lights, and let's transport ourselves to the 1920s. This is Death of the Cartographer at Ironspoke Works, a Hercule Poirot mystery. It's a long one, perfect for those cosy evenings over 90 minutes of intrigue, twists and deduction. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Is it a rainy London night or a sunny beach somewhere exotic? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more mysteries. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Ironspoke. In the autumn of 1926, London was a city of contrasts where the elegance of Mayfair rubbed shoulders with the sooty pulse of industry. Hercule Poirot, that diminutive Belgian detective with his immaculate moustache and egg-shaped head, sat in the pristine order of his Whitehaven mansion's apartment. The world outside thrummed with the clatter of omnibuses and the distant whistle of steam trains, but within these walls all was symmetry, a mirror of Poirot's own mind. His green eyes sparkled with the anticipation of a puzzle, though none had yet presented itself that crisp October morning. Poirot was sipping a tisane, his preferred beverage for contemplation, when his valet George entered with the quiet dignity of a man who had seen many such mornings. "Monsieur," George said, holding a silver tray, "a telegram has arrived from Sir Reginald Hargrove." The name stirred Poirot's little grey cells. Sir Reginald was no mere industrialist. He was the master of Ironspoke Works, a sprawling iron foundry on London's outskirts, where the fires of progress forged steel for the Empire's ships, locomotives, and war machines. A man of such stature did not send telegrams lightly. Poirot took the slip of paper, his fingers precise as he unfolded it. The message was brief, yet laden with intrigue. "Urgent! Need your expertise at Ironspoke. Maps and secrets involved. Arrive tomorrow, Hargrove." "Maps and secrets," Poirot murmured, his voice soft as velvet, his French accent curling around the words. He twirled the waxed tip of his moustache, a habit that betrayed the quickening of his intellect. "What manner of puzzle does Sir Reginald present to Hercule Poirot?" "George, prepare my bags. We depart for Ironspoke at dawn." The journey to Ironspoke Works was a study in transformation. Poirot's train left the polished heart of London, passing through the city's grimy fringes, where factories belched smoke into the grey sky. The landscape grew rugged, the air thick with the tang of coal and molten iron. Ironspoke itself was a leviathan of industry, its vast complex sprawling across acres of blackened earth. Smokestacks towered like sentinels, their plumes curling into the heavens, while the rhythmic clang of hammers on anvils echoed like a heartbeat. At the centre stood the administrative building, a red brick fortress with barred windows, its Victorian severity softened only by ivy creeping up its walls. Sir Reginald Hargrove awaited Poirot at the wrought-iron gates, his broad frame clad in a tailored suit that strained slightly at the shoulders. His beard, streaked with grey, framed a face etched with worry, and his eyes, sharp but shadowed, suggested nights spent wrestling with unseen burdens. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, extending a calloused hand, "your reputation precedes you. Thank you for coming on such short notice." Poirot inclined his head, his patent leather shoes gleaming despite the dust. "The reputation. It is but a shadow of the method. Now, Sir Reginald, explain this matter of maps and secrets." As they walked through the foundry's grounds, the air vibrated with the din of machinery. Workers in soot-stained overalls moved with purpose, hauling glowing ingots from furnaces that roared like dragons. Sir Reginald led Poirot past warehouses and cooling towers, his voice low to avoid the ears of labourers. "Ironspoke is more than a foundry," he began. "We craft precision components for the British military, parts for naval guns, aircraft frames, even experimental tanks. Our work demands accuracy, and at the heart of that accuracy is Elias Thorne, our chief cartographer." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "A cartographer in an ironworks? Most curious." "Indeed," Sir Reginald replied. "Thorne's maps are not mere drawings of land. He creates topographical schematics for our designs, maps that guide the placement of fortifications, supply lines, even secret bunkers. His work is critical to contracts with the Admiralty. But recently, Thorne has been unsettled. He claims someone is tampering with his maps, altering coordinates, erasing boundaries, even redrawing entire sections. He fears sabotage, perhaps espionage." Poirot's eyes narrowed, his mind already sifting possibilities. "And this tampering, has it caused harm?" "Not yet," Sir Reginald admitted. "But if a map leads to a misplaced fortification or a misaligned gun emplacement, the consequences could be catastrophic. Thorne insists on a detective's eye. I've locked down his office to preserve evidence, but I need you to uncover the truth." They reached the administrative building, its heavy oak doors guarded by a burly watchman. A single staircase and an iron-caged elevator led to the top floor, where Thorne's office was secured behind a locked door. "No one enters without my key or Thorne's," Sir Reginald said, patting his waistcoat pocket. "The room is a fortress. Barred windows, no other exits." Inside, Poirot met Elias Thorne, a man whose appearance matched the intensity of his work. Thorne was gaunt, in his mid-40s, with wire-rimmed spectacles perched on a sharp nose and fingers perpetually stained with ink. His office was a chaos of order. Maps covered every surface, pinned to walls, spread across a mahogany desk, rolled into tubes stacked in corners. They depicted coastlines, factories, and cryptic grids that hinted at military secrets. "Monsieur Poirot," Thorne said, his voice tight with strain, "thank God you're here. Look at this." He pointed to a map of a coastal defense line. "The coordinates here changed overnight, and here a boundary erased. Someone is undermining our work." Poirot donned his spectacles and examined the map with a magnifying glass. The alterations were subtle, a degree shifted, a line smudged but deliberate. "Most interesting," he said. "But how does one enter a locked room to make such changes? And why?" Thorne shook his head. "I lock the door each night. Only Sir Reginald and I have keys. As for why, I suspect espionage. Our rivals, foreign or domestic, would pay dearly for our plans." Sir Reginald interjected, "There are others who might benefit from chaos here." He hesitated, then listed the suspects. "My son, Bertram Hargrove, is ambitious, but resents Thorne's influence over our contracts. Miss Lydia Voss, Thorne's assistant, is brilliant, but a German émigré. Some whisper of divided loyalties. Dr. Harlan Croft, our chief engineer, has clashed with Thorne over design flaws. My wife, Lady Evelyn, knows more than she lets on, family secrets perhaps. And Victor Slade, a rival industrialist, has been circling Ironspoke for a merger." Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. 5 suspects, each with a shadow of motive. "And you, Sir Reginald? What of your own interests?" The industrialist bristled. "None. Thorne is vital to our success. I'd be a fool to harm him." Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. "We shall see. The little grey cells, they begin to stir." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the foundry's glowing furnaces, Poirot lingered in Thorne's office. He studied the maps, noting their precision and the faint traces of tampering. The locked room intrigued him. No windows that opened, no secret panels beneath his probing fingers. Yet something felt amiss, like a note out of tune in a symphony. Dinner was served at the Hargrove Manor, a grand estate adjacent to the works, its windows overlooking the fiery heart of Ironspoke. The table glittered with silver and crystal, but the atmosphere was heavy with unspoken tensions. Bertram Hargrove, a handsome man in his 30s with a sullen air, poured wine with a touch of defiance. Miss Lydia Voss, her auburn hair pinned neatly, adjusted her spectacles nervously. Dr. Croft, his hands still faintly oily, spoke of engineering with forced cheer. Lady Evelyn, resplendent in silk, smiled coolly, her eyes darting to her husband. Victor Slade, an outsider with a predatory grin, watched them all. Poirot observed in silence, his mind cataloguing gestures, words and silences. The meal ended with polite farewells, but as he retired to his guest room, he felt the weight of a mystery deepening. Ironspoke Works was a crucible, not just of iron, but of human ambition, deceit, and perhaps something darker. Tomorrow he would begin his interrogations, but tonight the little grey cells would work in the quiet of the night. Chapter 2. The Locked Door. The night had fallen over Ironspoke Works like a velvet curtain, heavy and impenetrable. The foundry's furnaces cast an eerie glow, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson, while the ceaseless clang of machinery echoed like a restless spirit. Hercule Poirot, his sharp mind attuned to the subtlest of details, dined at the Hargrove Manor, a grand estate perched on a hill overlooking the industrial sprawl. The dining room was a study in opulence. A long mahogany table gleamed under the light of a crystal chandelier. Silver cutlery clinked softly, and portraits of stern Hargrove ancestors gazed down with disapproval. Yet, beneath the polished surface, tension simmered like the molten iron in the works below. Seated around the table were the key players in this unfolding drama. Sir Reginald Hargrove, the patriarch, presided at the head, his bearded face set in a mask of forced geniality. His son, Bertram Hargrove, a man in his 30s with sharp cheekbones and a petulant scowl, toyed with his wineglass, his impatience barely concealed. Miss Lydia Voss, the cartographer's assistant, sat with her hands folded, her auburn hair catching the candlelight, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Dr. Harlan Croft, the chief engineer, his spectacles glinting, spoke in clipped tones about technical matters, his fingers stained with the oil of his trade. Lady Evelyn Hargrove, elegant in a silk gown adorned with pearls, smiled with a practised grace that failed to reach her eyes. And Victor Slade, the rival industrialist, lounged with a predator's ease, his presence an unspoken challenge to the Hargrove dynasty. Poirot, ever the observer, sipped his tisane, a delicate herbal infusion that soothed his senses while his mind worked furiously. The conversation danced around trivialities. The weather, the latest London fashions, the rising cost of coal. But Poirot noted the undercurrents. The way Bertram's jaw tightened when Sir Reginald praised Elias Thorne's work, the way Lydia Voss's fingers twitched when espionage was mentioned. The way Lady Evelyn's gaze lingered on Thorne's empty chair. "Monsieur Poirot," Lady Evelyn said, her voice smooth as polished marble, "what do you make of our little mystery? Maps altered in a locked room. Surely a prank, nothing more." Poirot tilted his head, his green eyes gleaming. "A prank, madame? Non? Non? The alteration of maps in a military foundry is no jest. It speaks of motive, perhaps ambition, perhaps betrayal. The little grey cells, they ponder." Bertram snorted, splashing wine onto the tablecloth. "Thorne's paranoid, father. He's been holed up in that office for weeks, muttering about spies. If you ask me, he's the one tampering with his own work to seem indispensable." Lydia Voss bristled, her German accent sharp. "Elias is meticulous. I've seen the changes myself. Coordinates shifted, lines erased, someone is interfering, and it's not him." Dr. Croft chuckled, wiping his spectacles. "Thorne's maps are riddled with errors anyway. If someone's tampering, they're likely correcting his mistakes." Victor Slade leaned forward, his smile sharp as a blade. "Hargrove, if Ironspoke's maps are unreliable, my offer to merge our firms stands. But sabotage? Preposterous." Sir Reginald's fist tightened around his fork. "Enough! Thorne is vital to our Admiralty contract. This nonsense stops now, with Poirot's help." The meal concluded with strained pleasantries, and Poirot excused himself to join Elias Thorne in his locked office atop the administrative building. The journey through the foundry was a sensory assault, the air thick with soot, the ground trembling with the pulse of machinery, the glow of furnaces casting grotesque shadows. The administrative building loomed ahead, its red brick facade unyielding, its single staircase and elevator guarded by a watchman named Jenkins, a grizzled man with a limp from the Great War. Thorne's office was a fortress of paper and ink. Maps covered every surface, walls, desk, even the floor, each a masterpiece of precision, detailing coastal defences, factory layouts, and cryptic grids that hinted at military secrets. Thorne himself was a nervous figure, his gaunt frame hunched over a desk littered with drafting tools. His spectacles slipped down his nose as he pointed to a map of a naval bunker. "Here, Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice trembling. "This line was redrawn last night. And here, a coordinate shifted by 2 degrees. It's deliberate. Someone wants to mislead our defences." Poirot donned his own spectacles, his magnifying glass poised like a conductor's baton. The changes were subtle, but undeniable. A coastline altered, a boundary smudged. "Most curious," he murmured, "and this room, it is always locked." "Always," Thorne insisted. "I have one key, Sir Reginald the other. The windows are barred, the walls solid, no one could enter." Poirot paced the room, his polished shoes clicking on the hardwood floor. He tested the windows, sealed tight, the bars immovable. He tapped the walls, no hollow panels. The door's lock was heavy, its bolt secure. "A locked room," he said, almost to himself. "The puzzle, it begins." They worked late into the night, Poirot studying the maps while Thorne recounted his suspicions. "I've enemies," Thorne admitted. "Bertram thinks I stifle his ambitions. Voss knows secrets from my past, things I've buried. Croft accuses me of undermining his designs, even Lady Evelyn. She's asked odd questions about my work." At midnight, Thorne yawned, his eyes heavy. "I must rest, monsieur. Stay if you wish, but lock the door when you leave." He clutched his key, a heavy brass object, and Poirot noted the door's intricate bolt mechanism. Poirot departed at 1 a.m., ensuring the door locked behind him. Jenkins, the watchman, confirmed no one had passed the staircase or elevator. The night was quiet, save for the distant hum of the foundry. Dawn broke with chaos. Poirot was roused from his guest room in the manor by a pounding on the door. Sir Reginald stood there, his face ashen, his beard dishevelled. "Poirot! It's Thorne! He's dead! Murdered in his office!" Poirot dressed swiftly, his mind racing as he followed Sir Reginald through the manor's echoing halls and back to the administrative building. Jenkins, visibly shaken, stood at the staircase. "No one passed, sir. I swear it," he stammered. "Not since you left." They reached the office door, still locked. Sir Reginald produced his key, his hands trembling as he turned it. The bolt slid back with a heavy clunk, and the door swung open to reveal a grim tableau. Elias Thorne lay slumped over his desk, a letter opener buried in his back. Blood had pooled on the maps beneath him, staining intricate lines crimson. Papers were scattered, but there was no sign of struggle. No overturned chairs, no broken glass. The windows remained sealed, the bolt on the door undisturbed. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, his voice steady despite the horror. He knelt beside the body, his gloved hands careful not to disturb the scene. The letter opener was ornate, likely Thorne's own, driven deep between the shoulder blades. Stabbed from behind, Poirot noted. No defensive wounds. Time of death. Perhaps 2 a.m. based on the rigor. The suspects gathered at the door, summoned by a frantic housemaid. Bertram's face was pale, his earlier bravado gone. "Impossible!" he exclaimed. "The door was locked. How could anyone get in?" Lydia Voss gasped, clutching her spectacles. "Elias, no!" Her voice broke, but her eyes were dry. Dr. Croft frowned, his analytical mind already at work. No one could have entered. The elevator was locked, the stairs guarded. Lady Evelyn pressed a handkerchief to her lips, her composure faltering. "This is dreadful. Who could do such a thing?" Victor Slade, standing apart, raised an eyebrow. "A locked room murder? Quite the theatrical touch." Poirot rose, his gaze sweeping the room. A locked room, yes, and yet a murder. The little grey cells, they are most intrigued. He noted a smudged footprint near the desk, too faint to identify, and a torn fragment of a map clutched in Thorne's hand, its coordinates altered. The office was sealed, no other exits, no hidden passages, or so it seemed. Sir Reginald summoned the police, and Poirot sealed the room, forbidding entry. "This is no ordinary crime," he declared. "It is a puzzle, a challenge to the intellect, and Hercule Poirot, he does not fail." As the suspects dispersed, their alibis vague, "I was in bed," each claimed, but, alone, Poirot felt the weight of the mystery settle upon him. The foundry's fires roared outside, but within this locked room, a colder fire burned, the fire of human deceit. Chapter 3. Interrogations and Alibis. The morning after Elias Thorne's murder, Ironspoke Works buzzed with a nervous energy. Its furnaces roaring like a beast disturbed. The administrative building, a red brick monolith amid the foundry's chaos, stood silent, its top-floor office now a shrine to a crime that defied logic. Hercule Poirot, his impeccable suit a stark contrast to the soot-stained surroundings, stood at the heart of the mystery, his green eyes sharp with purpose. The locked room, sealed door, barred windows, no hidden passages, presented a puzzle that thrilled his methodical mind. But puzzles required pieces, and those pieces lay in the hearts and lives of the living. As the sun struggled through a sky choked with smoke, Inspector Japp arrived, his bowler hat tilted, and his expression one of familiar exasperation. "Poirot, you've landed us in a fine mess," he grumbled, stepping into the manor's library, where Poirot had set up his base. The room was a haven of dark wood and leather-bound books, its tall windows offering a view of the foundry's glowing heart. "A man stabbed in a locked room, no less. What's your game?" Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. Mon ami Jap, it is no game. It is a challenge to the little grey cells. Elias Thorne, stabbed with his own letter opener, no fingerprints but his own. The door locked, the windows barred, the guard Jenkins swearing no one passed. Yet a murder has occurred. We must uncover how and why. Jap scratched his chin. The letter opener's clean of prints, save Thorne's. Stabbed clean through the back, no struggle. Time of death around 2 a.m., the coroner says. But how'd the killer get in and out? That, Poirot said, tapping his temple, is the question. Let us begin with the suspects. Their words, their gestures, they will reveal the cracks in their stories. Poirot had requested the 5 key players gather in the library for questioning. The Hargrove Manor, with its oak-panelled walls and heavy velvet curtains, felt like a stage for a tragedy. The suspects arrived one by one, their faces a mix of grief, fear, and suspicion. Poirot seated himself behind a polished desk, a notebook open, his pen poised like a surgeon's scalpel. Jap stood by the fireplace, his notebook less elegant, but no less ready. First came Sir Reginald Hargrove. His broad shoulders slumped as he sat heavily in a leather chair. His beard was unkempt, his eyes bloodshot. "Monsieur Poirot," he began, "this is a catastrophe. Thorne was the linchpin of our admiralty, contract. Without him, Ironspoke could falter." Poirot leaned forward, his voice soft but piercing. "And your whereabouts, Sir Reginald, between midnight and 3 a.m. "In bed," Sir Reginald replied firmly. "I retired after dinner, around 11 p.m. My wife can confirm I was in our room." Poirot noted the answer, his pen scratching. "And your motive?" Thorne's maps were tampered with, perhaps to hide financial irregularities. Ironspoke's books, they are not always balanced, non? Sir Reginald's face reddened. "Nonsense! Thorne was invaluable. I'd no reason to harm him." But his fingers gripped the chair's arms, betraying unease. Poirot's grey cells registered a whisper of doubt. Rumours of embezzlement had reached his ears in London. Next was Bertram Hargrove, his handsome face pale, his usual arrogance subdued. He slouched into the chair, lighting a cigarette with unsteady hands. "I didn't like Thorne," he admitted bluntly. "He blocked my plans to modernize the foundry, said my designs were reckless. But murder? I'm no killer." "Your movements, Monsieur Bertram?" Poirot asked, his eyes fixed on the young man's fidgeting fingers. "I was restless after dinner," Bertram said. "Went for a smoke in the garden till about 1:30, then to bed, alone." Poirot's eyebrow rose. "The garden, at such an hour? Most curious." Later, a gardener would contradict this, claiming the garden was empty past midnight. Bertram's alibi was thin, his motive, resentment, clear. Miss Lydia Voss entered next, her auburn hair pinned tightly, her spectacles magnifying her anxious eyes. She sat with the precision of a schoolmistress, her hands clasped. "Elias was my mentor," she said, her German accent clipped. "He taught me cartography when I fled Berlin after the war. I'd never harm him." Poirot tilted his head. "And yet, mademoiselle, you have a past. Thorne knew of it, yes? A refugee, perhaps with secrets? Secrets that could be used against you?" Lydia's composure faltered, her lips trembling. He found my old papers. Forged, yes, to escape Germany. He threatened to expose me unless I worked harder. But I didn't kill him." Her tears seemed genuine, but Poirot noted their theatrical timing. Dr. Harlan Croft followed, his engineer's hands stained with oil, his spectacles fogged from the foundry's heat. He sat stiffly, his voice measured. "Thorne was a thorn in my side, pun intended. He accused me of sabotaging his maps to cover my own design flaws. Absurd. I was in my lab until 3 a.m. working on a new gear system. The night watchman Peters saw me." Poirot nodded thoughtfully. "A convenient alibi, Doctor. But the lab is near the administrative building, no? A short walk to the elevator, perhaps?" The watchman later confirmed Croft's presence, but admitted he dozed briefly. A crack in the alibi. Lady Evelyn Hargrove glided in, her silk gown whispering, her pearl earrings catching the light. She sat with the grace of a duchess, but her hands betrayed her, twisting a lace handkerchief. "I barely knew Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice cool. "He was my husband's employee, nothing more. I retired early with a headache, around 10 p.m. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And yet, madame, there are whispers. An intimacy with Thorne, perhaps? A secret that might drive one to silence him?" Lady Evelyn's cheeks flushed, but her gaze held steady. "Gossip, Monsieur Poirot. I was in my room, alone." Her trembling hands told a different story. Rumours of an affair lingered like smoke. Finally, Victor Slade, the rival industrialist, swaggered in, his tailored suit and sly smile out of place in the sombre room. "Why am I even here?" he demanded. "I left Ironspoke at 11 p.m. for my hotel in London. I've no stake in Thorne's death." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "But, Monsieur Slade, a weakened Ironspoke benefits your merger plans, no? Your car was seen returning at 1 a.m. Curious, for a man who claims to have left." Slade's grin faltered. "A mistake. I was in bed." Poirot dismissed him, his notebook now filled with contradictions. He turned to the physical evidence, revisiting the crime scene with Japp. The office remained as it was. Thorne slumped over his desk, the letter opener in his back, maps scattered. Poirot examined the smudged footprint near the desk, too faint to match any suspect's shoes, yet deliberate, as if placed to mislead. In Thorne's hand, he found a torn map fragment, its coordinates altered to point to a non-existent bunker. A clue, or a red herring. Japp pointed to a small vial on a shelf, labelled as medicine. "Poison, perhaps?" he suggested. Poirot sniffed it. "Digitalis for the heart. Miss Voss's, perhaps. She mentioned an ailment. But no poison in Thorne's body. A distraction, mon ami." They questioned Jenkins, the watchman, again. "No one passed, sir," he insisted. "Staircase and elevator were quiet all night." But his limp suggested slow movement. Could someone have slipped by? Poirot returned to the library, his mind a whirl of alibis and motives. Sir Reginald's financial woes, Bertram's ambition, Lydia's secrets, Croft's rivalry, Lady Evelyn's rumoured affair. Slade's opportunism, each a thread in a tangled web. The locked room loomed largest, no key missing, no windows breached, yet a man was dead. As noon approached, Poirot stood by the library window, watching the foundry's smoke curl into the sky. "The little grey cells, they dance," he murmured. "This is no simple crime. It is a symphony of deception, and we have only begun to hear its notes." Japp sighed. "You and your grey cells, Poirot. What's next?" Chapter 4. Shadows in the Foundry. The sun hung low over Ironspoke Works, its rays struggling through a haze of smoke that cloaked the foundry in a perpetual twilight. The air thrummed with the relentless pulse of machinery, hammers striking anvils, furnaces roaring, the hiss of steam like whispered secrets. Hercule Poirot, his patent leather shoes dusted with soot, moved through this industrial labyrinth with the precision of a chess master. The murder of Elias Thorne in a locked room had ignited his little grey cells, and now, in the shadow of the towering smokestacks, he sought the threads that would unravel the mystery. The office, sealed like a tomb, held its secrets, but the foundry itself, its workers, its hidden corners, might yield the truth. Poirot began his morning in the administrative building, revisiting the crime scene with Inspector Japp, whose grumbling presence was as familiar as the fog of London. The office remained untouched. Thorne's body had been removed, but the blood-stained maps still lay scattered across the desk, the letter opener's absence a stark reminder of the fatal blow. The smudged footprint near the desk, too faint to identify, nagged at Poirot's sense of order. He knelt, his magnifying glass catching the light, and traced the mark's outline. "Curieux," he murmured. "It is deliberate, yet not precise. A clue or a deception?" Japp, pacing, pointed to the torn map fragment found in Thorne's hand. "This bit of paper, coordinates to a bunker that doesn't exist. What's it mean, Poirot? A dying message?" "Perhaps," Poirot replied, his voice soft as velvet. "Or perhaps a distraction, mon ami. The little grey cells, they suspect a game of misdirection." Leaving the office, Poirot descended into the heart of the foundry, where workers toiled in the heat and clangor. He interviewed a foreman, a grizzled man named Tompkins, whose face was etched with years of labour. "Mr. Thorne kept to himself," Tompkins said, wiping sweat from his brow. "But last night, round 2 a.m., I heard a clank near the administrative building. Thought it was the elevator, but it's always locked after hours." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The elevator, you say? Most interesting." He made a note to inspect it further, suspecting a breach in the locked room puzzle. Next he sought out the night watchman Peters, who had corroborated Dr. Croft's alibi. Peters, a wiry man with nervous eyes, stood by a cooling tower, its steam curling like spectres. "I saw Dr. Croft in his lab till 3 a.m., Peters insisted, "but I might have nodded off for a minute or two. The foundry's noise, it lulls you." Poirot's moustache twitched. "A minute or two, Monsieur Peters. Enough for a shadow to slip by, no?" The watchman's lapse opened a window of opportunity for Croft, or another. In the foundry's labyrinthine tunnels, Poirot discovered a maintenance log for the elevator. Tucked inside was a small key, unmarked but fitting the elevator's override mechanism. It was hidden in a toolbox in Dr. Croft's lab, a cluttered space filled with gears and blueprints. "A key to freedom," Poirot mused, pocketing it for later examination. Was this how the killer reached the office undetected? Returning to the manor, Poirot found a new clue in the form of a cigarette butt, near the staircase to Thorne's office. It bore the brand Bertram Hargrove smoked, but the timestamp on a nearby worker's log suggested it was dropped hours before the murder, too early to implicate Bertram directly. A red herring, Poirot suspected, planted to mislead. He summoned Miss Lydia Voss for a private conversation in the manor's rose garden, where the scent of blooms clashed with the foundry's acrid tang. Lydia, her auburn hair pinned tightly, clutched a notebook of cartographic notes. "Mademoiselle," Poirot began, his tone gentle but probing, "you spoke of Thorne's blackmail. He knew of your forged papers, yes? What else did he hold over you?" Lydia's eyes widened, then narrowed. He suspected I was passing information to a rival firm. It's not true, but he threatened to ruin me. I had to obey his every demand." Her voice cracked, but Poirot noted her steady hands, a sign of control beneath the tears. A surprise came when Poirot revisited the manor's guest wing. In a waste bin, he found a torn letter addressed to Lady Evelyn, written in Thorne's hand. It hinted at a past liaison, ended bitterly. "You cannot deny what we shared, but your secrets are safe no longer." Poirot's grey cells hummed. Had Lady Evelyn silenced Thorne to protect her reputation? Victor Slade's alibi also began to crumble. A stable hand reported seeing Slade's sleek black Daimler return to Ironspoke around 1 a.m., contradicting his claim of retiring to his London hotel. When confronted in the Manor's drawing room, Slade smirked. "A late drive, nothing more. You've no proof I was near Thorne's office." Poirot smiled enigmatically. "The proof, monsieur. It emerges like a photograph in the darkroom." The investigation took a twist when Poirot examined the office's balcony door, hidden behind a heavy bookcase. It was bolted from the inside, its lock rusted from disuse. Yet a faint scratch on the bolt suggested recent tampering. "Impossible," Japp muttered. "No one could unbolt it from outside." "Or could they?" Poirot replied, his mind racing. He recalled a worker's mention of a foundry tool, a long, thin rod used for furnace maintenance. Could such a tool, slipped through a crack, manipulate the bolt? The idea was tantalizing, but the balcony led to a sheer drop. No ladder, no access. Another clue surfaced. A worker reported seeing a shadow near the office window at 1:45 a.m., but the barred windows were sealed. Poirot tested them again, finding one bar slightly loose, though not enough for entry. Another red herring, or a sign of an aborted plan? In the Manor's library, Poirot gathered the suspects for a subtle test. He displayed a replica of the tampered map, watching their reactions. Bertram's eyes darted. Nervously, Lydia adjusted her spectacles. Croft frowned. Lady Evelyn paled, and Slade remained impassive. "This map," Poirot said, "holds a secret. Who among you knows it?" No one spoke, but the air grew thick with suspicion. Later, Poirot found a smudged ink blot on a map in Lydia's possession, matching the ink on Thorne's desk. An accident, she claimed. But Poirot wondered if she had been in the office after hours, perhaps planting the footprint. The day ended with a startling discovery. In the foundry's coal chute, Poirot found a scrap of fabric, fine silk, matching Lady Evelyn's gown. Had she been near the office, perhaps via a service tunnel? She denied it, her voice icy. "I was in my room, Monsieur Poirot. You've no evidence." As night fell, the foundry's fires cast long shadows, mirroring the doubts in Poirot's mind. The clues were mounting. The elevator key, the cigarette butt, the torn letter, the loose bar, the silk scrap. Yet each could be a deception. A false trail laid by a cunning mind. The locked room remained inviolate, its secret intact. Poirot stood by the Manor's window, gazing at the glowing furnaces. "The truth," he murmured, "it hides in the interplay of light and shadow. The little grey cells, they begin to see patterns." He knew the killer was among the five. Their motives, greed, revenge, fear, intertwined like the foundry's pipes. But the how of the crime eluded him, a puzzle piece just out of reach. Japp joined him, weary. "Any closer, Poirot? This locked room's driving me mad." Poirot's smile was serene. "Patience, mon ami. The foundry holds its secrets, but Hercule Poirot, he will uncover them." Chapter 5. Complications and Twists. The air at Ironspoke Works was thick with the scent of molten iron and coal dust, a fitting backdrop for a mystery that grew murkier by the hour. It was the second day of Hercule Poirot's investigation, and the foundry's relentless clangor seemed to mock his quest for clarity. Elias Thorne's murder in a locked room, stabbed with his own letter opener, no entry or exit apparent, remained an enigma. The five suspects, their motives tangled like the foundry's steam pipes, watched Poirot with wary eyes. But the little Belgian detective, his moustache perfectly waxed, thrived on such challenges. His grey cells hummed, sensing the puzzle was about to twist in unexpected ways. Poirot began the morning in the Manor's library, his temporary headquarters, where the shelves groaned under the weight of engineering tomes, and the air held the faint musk of old leather. Inspector Japp, ever the skeptic, lounged by the fireplace, flipping through his notebook. "This case is a maze, Poirot," he grumbled. "That elevator key, the cigarette butt, Lady Evelyn's letter, all leading nowhere. What's your next move?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The maze, mon ami. It has false turns, but also hidden paths. We must provoke the truth, shake the suspects from their complacency." To unsettle the group, Poirot proposed a bold gambit, a séance, a nod to the theatrical flair of Agatha Christie's mysteries. The idea was met with raised eyebrows, but Sir Reginald, desperate for resolution, agreed to host it that evening in the Manor's drawing-room. "If it helps find Thorne's killer," he said, his voice heavy, "I'll indulge it." The day was spent chasing new leads. Poirot returned to the administrative building, focusing on the elevator. The override key found in Dr. Croft's lab suggested a breach in the locked room mystery. He tested it, and the elevator whirred to life, ascending to Thorne's office without a guard's notice. But the log showed no activity after midnight. Another dead end? Or had someone erased the record? In the foundry's maintenance tunnels, Poirot discovered a narrow vent leading to the office's ceiling. It was too small for a person, but a worker mentioned seeing a glint of metal inside, a tool perhaps dropped during the crime. Poirot retrieved it. A thin steel rod, like those used for furnace maintenance. Could it have manipulated the balcony door's bolt? He filed the thought away, suspecting another red herring. A surprising clue emerged when Poirot interviewed a young typist, Miss Clara Wren, who worked near Thorne's office. Nervously twisting her apron, she whispered, "I saw Miss Voss leaving the administrative building at 1 a.m. carrying a satchel. She looked furtive." When confronted, Lydia Voss paled. "I was retrieving notes for Elias," she insisted. "He asked me to work late." But her satchel, when searched, contained a map with fresh ink smudges, matching those on Thorne's desk. A coincidence, or evidence of her presence at the crime scene? The séance that evening was a spectacle of tension. The drawing-room was dim, lit only by flickering candles that cast eerie shadows on the oak-panelled walls. The suspects sat in a circle. Sir Reginald, stern but uneasy. Bertram, fidgeting with his cigarette case. Lydia, clutching her spectacles. Dr. Croft, sceptical but curious. Lady Evelyn, her pearls gleaming like tiny moons. And Victor Slade, smirking as if above it all. Poirot, seated at the head, adopted a grave tone. "We call upon the spirit of Elias Thorne," he intoned, his accent lending an air of mystique. "Reveal the hand that struck you down." A chill ran through the room, though Poirot knew the true effect would come from psychology, not spirits. He had arranged a hidden gramophone, operated by a discreet foot pedal, to produce a faint accusing voice. As the candles flickered, the voice rasped, "Croft, you betrayed me!" Dr. Croft leapt to his feet, his face ashen. "This is nonsense! I was in my lab!" But his outburst betrayed fear. Poirot noted it, pressing further. "Monsieur Croft, you quarrelled with Thorne over designs. Did you seek to silence him?" Croft's hands shook. "Yes, we fought. He claimed my gears were faulty, undermining me to the Admiralty, but I didn't kill him." The séance dissolved into chaos, with Bertram accusing Lydia of planting the voice, and Lady Evelyn clutching her handkerchief, her composure cracking. Poirot observed silently, his grey cells cataloguing reactions. The séance had served its purpose. It had rattled the suspects, exposing fissures in their facades. Afterward, a new twist emerged. Poirot examined Thorne's maps again, noticing a pattern in the tampering. Each altered coordinate pointed to a site in the foundry's foundations, long rumoured to hide a cache of Hargrove family gold, lost during the Napoleonic Wars. Had Thorne discovered this treasure, making him a target? Sir Reginald, when questioned, scoffed. "A myth, Poirot. My ancestors were practical, not treasure hoarders." But his eyes darted, suggesting unease. The plot thickened when Poirot learned of a second autopsy finding. The coroner, a meticulous man, detected traces of a sedative in Thorne's blood, not enough to kill, but enough to dull his senses before the stabbing. The vial of digitalis in Lydia's room was unrelated, but a teacup in the office, overlooked earlier, held residue of a different sedative. Had Thorne been drugged to prevent resistance? The cup bore no fingerprints, deepening the mystery. Another complication arose with Bertram. A worker reported overhearing him arguing with Slade in the stables at 1:30 a.m., contradicting his garden alibi. "You owe me, Victor," Bertram had hissed. Was Bertram in debt to Slade, perhaps conspiring to destabilize Ironspoke? When confronted, Bertram flushed. "A private matter, nothing to do with Thorne." But his evasiveness suggested otherwise. Lydia's past surfaced again. A coded letter found in her room hinted at contact with a German contact, a brother perhaps involved in espionage. "I wrote to him for help," she admitted tearfully. Not to betray Ironspoke, but to escape Thorne's threats. Poirot wondered if her brother had acted on her behalf, though the locked room made this unlikely. Lady Evelyn's secret deepened when a maid confessed to seeing her near the administrative building at midnight, dressed in a dark cloak. "I was restless," Lady Evelyn said, her voice icy. "I walked the grounds, nothing more." But the silk scrap from the coal chute matched her gown, placing her closer to the crime than she admitted. Slade's motives grew clearer when Poirot uncovered a telegram in his hotel room, sent to a rival firm. "Ironspoke vulnerable. Proceed with offer." Had Slade orchestrated Thorne's death to weaken Sir Reginald's empire? Slade laughed it off. "Business, Poirot, nothing criminal." As the day waned, Poirot stood in the foundry's heart, watching molten iron pour like liquid fire. The clues were piling up. The elevator key, the steel rod, the sedative, the map's treasure hint, the coded letter, the silk scrap. Yet each could be a deception, a shadow cast to obscure the truth. The locked room remained the central enigma. How had the killer entered and exited undetected? Japp joined him, exasperated. "This case is like chasing smoke, Poirot. Every clue leads to another dead end." Poirot's smile was serene. "Smoke, mon ami, reveals the fire. The little grey cells, they see the pattern forming. The killer is clever, but Hercule Poirot, he is more so." The foundry's fires roared, mirroring the intensity of the mystery. Poirot knew the truth was close, but the twists, sedatives, treasure, hidden debts had complicated the puzzle. The suspect's lies were cracking, but the locked room held its secret fast. Chapter 6. The Revelation. The third day at Ironspoke Works dawned under a sky bruised with storm clouds, the air heavy with the promise of rain and the weight of unsolved murder. The foundry's furnaces roared, their glow casting an otherworldly light across the industrial sprawl, but Hercule Poirot's focus was sharper than ever. The death of Elias Thorne, stabbed in a locked office, no entry or exit apparent, had woven a tapestry of clues and deceptions. An elevator key, a smudged footprint, a sedative-laced teacup, a silk scrap, and whispers of hidden treasure. The 5 suspects, Sir Reginald Hargrove, Bertram Hargrove, Lydia Voss, Dr. Harlan Croft, and Lady Evelyn, circled like wolves, their motives entangled in greed, revenge, and secrets. Poirot, his grey cells alight, sensed the moment of revelation was near. In the Manor's library, Poirot pored over his notes, the leather-bound tomes around him a silent audience to his deductions. Inspector Japp, ever the pragmatist, slumped in a chair, his bowler hat askew. "Poirot, we've got a pile of clues and no clear path," he grumbled. That séance rattled them, but we're no closer to cracking this locked room. Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. "Patience, mon ami. The truth, it is like a map. Its lines become clear only when viewed from the correct angle. Today, we shift our perspective." Poirot began by revisiting the office, now a shrine to the crime, with Japp trailing reluctantly. The blood-stained maps remained, their tampered coordinates a silent accusation. Poirot's magnifying glass lingered on the torn fragment from Thorne's hand, its altered lines pointing to a non-existent bunker in the foundry's foundations. "This map," he murmured, "it is not merely tampered, it tells a story." He noticed a faint watermark, nearly invisible, bearing the Hargrove crest. "Curieux," he said, "a family secret, perhaps." He summoned Sir Reginald to the library, his broad frame filling the doorway. "Monsieur," Poirot began, holding up the map fragment, "this bears your family's mark. You dismissed the tale of hidden gold as a myth. But what if Thorne found evidence of it?" Sir Reginald's face darkened. "Nonsense, Poirot. My ancestors were ironmasters, not pirates. If there's gold, it's long gone." But his eyes flickered, betraying a crack in his certainty. Poirot pressed further, revealing a ledger entry he'd uncovered in the Manor's archives. A 19th-century payment to a smuggler tied to the Hargrove estate. "A treasure hidden in the foundations," Poirot said. "Thorne's maps led him to it, no?" Sir Reginald's shoulders sagged. "If he found something, he never told me, but it could explain his paranoia." The revelation shifted the motive landscape. Had Thorne's discovery of the gold made him a target? Poirot turned to the locked room puzzle, examining the balcony door again. The rusted bolt bore that faint scratch, but tests with the steel rod from the vent proved futile. It was too short to manipulate the lock. Another red herring, but it sparked a new theory. Poirot inspected the office's ceiling vent, too narrow for a person but wide enough for a tool. He found a faint oil residue inside, matching the type used in Croft's lab. "A mechanical mind at work," he mused. Seeking to test the suspect's reactions, Poirot gathered them in the Manor's dining room for an impromptu meeting. He displayed a reconstructed map, falsely claiming it pinpointed the treasure's location. "One of you," he said, his voice deliberate, "knew Thorne's discovery and silenced him to claim it." Bertram's scowl deepened. "This is absurd. Thorne was obsessed with his maps, not gold." But his fingers twitched, clutching his cigarette case. Lydia Voss adjusted her spectacles, her voice sharp. Elias never mentioned treasure. His focus was the Admiralty contract. Yet her eyes lingered on the map, betraying curiosity. Dr. Croft snorted. "Treasure, a distraction from my work. Thorne's maps were flawed, and he knew it." His defensiveness was palpable. Lady Evelyn's composure faltered, her pearls clicking as she shifted. "This is fanciful, Monsieur Poirot. I knew nothing of such things." But her gaze darted to her husband. Victor Slade leaned back, smirking. "A clever play, Poirot, but I'm here for business, not fairy tales." His calm was too studied, Poirot noted. The meeting yielded no confessions, but the tension was electric. Later, Poirot uncovered a new clue in the foundry's maintenance logs. A furnace maintenance schedule, altered to show activity near the office at 2 a.m. The signature was smudged, but it resembled Croft's handwriting. When confronted, Croft blustered. "A clerical error! I was in my lab, as Peters said." But Peters, the watchman, admitted under pressure that he'd seen Croft near the elevator at 1:50 a.m., contradicting his earlier story. "He looked hurried," Peters mumbled. "Didn't think it mattered." Another twist came from Lydia Voss. Poirot found a coded journal in her room, hidden beneath a floorboard. Deciphered, it revealed her brother Whodunit, former German intelligence officer, had visited London weeks earlier. "He came to help me," Lydia confessed, tears streaming. "Thorne was threatening to expose my past. My brother urged me to act, but I didn't kill Elias." Her story rang true, but Poirot wondered if her brother had taken matters into his own hands, though the locked room made this improbable. Lady Evelyn's secret deepened when a maid produced a locket, found in the coal chute alongside the silk scrap. It bore a photograph of Thorne, inscribed with E.H., Evelyn Hargrove. Confronted, she broke, her voice trembling. "Yes, I cared for Elias years ago. It ended badly. He threatened to tell Reginald, unless I persuaded him to fund a new project. But I didn't kill him!" Her confession added a layer of betrayal to the motive pool. The most startling revelation came late that afternoon. Poirot, examining the office's floorboards, noticed a faint seam near the desk. With Japp's help, he pried it open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a single map, older than the others, depicting the foundry's foundations with a marked spot labelled Hargrove Cache. A note in Thorne's hand read, "Found it! Must protect!" The map confirmed the treasure's existence, tying Thorne's death to greed. But a final twist shook Poirot's theories. The coroner's report, refined with new tests, showed the sedative in Thorne's blood was administered hours before the stabbing, around 10 p.m. during dinner. The letter opener, however, was the fatal blow, delivered at 2 a.m. Had the killer drugged Thorne to ensure compliance, then returned later? The teacup's residue suggested a deliberate act, but whose? Poirot gathered the suspects again, this time in the foundry's shadow, near a roaring furnace. "The treasure," he declared, holding the old map aloft. "It was Thorne's secret and his doom. One of you knew and acted." Their reactions, Bertram's clenched fists, Lydia's trembling, Croft's scowl, Evelyn's pallor, Slade's icy calm, revealed nothing conclusive, but Poirot felt the net tightening. As rain began to fall, drumming on the foundry's iron roofs, Poirot stood alone, the map in his hands. The locked room, the sedative, the treasure, all pointed to a meticulous killer. "The little grey cells," he whispered, "they see the shape of the truth, but one piece remains missing." Japp joined him, rain streaking his coat. "You're close, Poirot, I can tell. But this locked room, it's impossible." Poirot's smile was serene. "Impossible, mon ami? No, the impossible is merely the possible disguised by cunning." The foundry's fires blazed, mirroring the fire in Poirot's mind. The revelation of the treasure had shifted the puzzle, but the locked room's secret held fast, daring him to solve it. Chapter 7. Justice Served. The storm that had threatened Ironspoke Works finally broke on the fourth day, rain lashing the foundry's iron roofs like 1,000 accusing fingers. Thunder rumbled through the smokestacks, mingling with the ceaseless roar of furnaces, creating a symphony of chaos that mirrored the turmoil in Hercule Poirot's investigation. Elias Thorne's murder, stabbed in a locked room, Drugged with sedative, his discovery of hidden Hargrove gold, the apparent spark, had unraveled into a web of greed and betrayal. The 5 suspects, their alibis shattered, hovered on the edge of confession. Poirot, his little grey cells ablaze, knew the time had come to serve justice, but the locked-room puzzle demanded one final revelation. In the Manor's library, Poirot gathered the final pieces of evidence, his notebook a mosaic of deductions. Inspector Japp, soaked from the rain, paced impatiently. "Poirot, you've got that look, the one that says you've cracked it. Spill it, man. Who killed Thorn?" Poirot's green eyes sparkled. "Patience, mon ami. The truth, it must be presented with order and method. First, we confront the shadows." He began with a meticulous reconstruction of the timeline. Thorn had been sedated around 10 p.m., likely via his evening tisane in the office. Residue matched a rare herb from Dr. Croft's lab stores. The stabbing occurred at 2 a.m., the letter opener plunged with precision. The door locked, windows barred, vent too narrow. The killer, Poirot said, used the foundry's ingenuity against us. Poirot summoned Dr. Harlan Croft first. The engineer's spectacles fogged from the storm. Croft sat rigidly, his oil-stained hands clenched. "Monsieur Croft," Poirot began, his voice calm as a still pond. "Your alibi crumbles. Peters saw you near the elevator at 1:50 a.m. The override key was in your lab, and the sedative, your herb collection, matches the residue." Croft's face twisted. "Coincidences. Thorn stole my designs, accused me of flaws to ruin me, but I didn't kill him." Poirot leaned forward. "No? Then explain the mechanical device I found hidden in your lab. Extendable rod with a magnet, designed for precision work. It fits the vent, manipulates the bolt from afar. You drugged Thorn earlier, returned via the elevator, and struck through the vent with your invention. An impossible crime made possible by engineering." Croft paled, but held his tongue. Poirot dismissed him, knowing partial truths would draw out the full confession. Next came Lydia Voss, her auburn hair dishevelled, eyes red from sleepless nights. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said gently, "your brother's visit, the coded journal, they suggest espionage. But Thorn's blackmail was your chain. You planted the footprint, no? To mislead." Lydia sobbed. I went to the office at 1 a.m. to retrieve papers. Elias was alive, drowsy. I saw the treasure map, but I left. I swear I didn't kill him." Poirot nodded. "Your innocence in murder, perhaps, but your secrets fed the fire." Bertram Hargrove stormed in next, his handsome face thunderous. "This is harassment, Poirot. Father's empire is crumbling because of you." Poirot's eyebrow rose. "Your debts to Slade, your argument in the stables, they paint a picture of desperation. The cigarette butt near the stairs, yours, planted to deflect?" Bertram sneered. "I hated Thorn. He blocked my ideas, but I was in the garden." "The gardener says otherwise," Poirot countered. "You knew of the gold via family law, sought to claim it by silencing Thorn." Bertram's defiance cracked slightly, but he denied murder, admitting only to snooping. Lady Evelyn entered gracefully, though rain had spotted her gown. "Madame," Poirot said, holding the locket, "your affair with Thorn, the silk scrap in the chute, they place you near the scene." Evelyn's lips trembled. "I loved him once, but he became possessive, threatening exposure. I walked the grounds that night, yes, but I never entered the office." Poirot believed her partial truth. Passion, not lethal intent. Victor Slade sauntered in last, his smirk undimmed. "Poirot, you've no hold on me. My telegram was business." "But your return at 1 a.m., your debts from Bertram, they suggest orchestration. You hired someone? Or used Croft's rivalry?" Slade laughed. "Prove it." Sir Reginald, summoned last, confessed financial woes. "Thorn knew I embezzled to cover losses. The gold could save us, but I'd never kill for it." The interrogations yielded fragments, but Poirot needed the whole. He assembled all in the manor's great hall as thunder boomed, candles flickering like accusatory eyes. Japp stood guard, local constables ready. "My friends," Poirot began, pacing deliberately, "the murder of Elias Thorn was born of greed. The hidden gold in the foundations, discovered via his maps. He was drugged at 10 p.m. by Dr. Croft, who supplied the sedative to frame another or ensure compliance. Croft, your motive was revenge. Thorn stole your invention, a gear system worth thousands to the Admiralty." Croft bristled. "Lies," Poirot continued. "Miss Voss provided access, her blackmail making her complicit in tampering, but not murder. Bertram and Slade conspired for financial gain. Bertram's debts, Slade's merger. Lady Evelyn's affair added jealousy. Sir Reginald's embezzlement, desperation." Gasps echoed. Poirot raised a hand. "But the killer is one, Dr. Harlan Croft. You built the device, a rod with magnet extended through the vent to unbolt the balcony, though you entered via elevator with the override key. You stabbed Thorn, who was sedated, then locked from inside using a string trick, pulled through the keyhole, retrieved later. The footprint was yours, smudged to mislead, the treasure map planted to distract." Croft lunged, but Japp restrained him. "You can't prove it," he shouted. Poirot produced the device from his pocket, demonstrated on a mock door. "The oil residue matches your lab. Peters saw you, and Thorn's dying note. The altered coordinate spell Croft, in cartographic code, a final accusation." Croft collapsed, confessing. "Thorn stole my gear design, threatened exposure unless I altered maps for him. I drugged him to search for the gold map, but he woke partially. I panicked, stabbed him with the letter opener via my extended tool through the vent. Impossible, but my engineering made it so. Then I locked and escaped. The room erupted. Sir Reginald disowned the chaos. Bertram slunk away. Lydia wept. Evelyn fainted. Slade slipped out but was arrested for conspiracy." Japp cuffed Croft. "Brilliant, Poirot. Justice served." As rain eased, Poirot nodded. "Order restored. The little grey cells, they prevail." Chapter 8. Hidden Agendas Unveiled. The storm had passed over Ironspoke Works, leaving a damp chill that seeped into the bones of the foundry's iron structures. The furnaces still roared, their glow a defiant pulse against the grey dawn, but a quieter tension now gripped the Hargrove Manor. Dr. Harlan Croft's confession, his ingenious use of a mechanical rod to stab Elias Thorn through a vent, unlocking the locked room mystery, had brought justice. Yet Hercule Poirot sensed the puzzle was not fully solved. The little Belgian detective, his moustache immaculate despite the chaos, knew that hidden agendas lingered among the suspects, like embers beneath ash. The treasure map, the sedative, the tangled motives of greed and betrayal. These demanded further scrutiny to ensure no shadow escaped his grey cells. Poirot began the morning in the manor's library, its oak shelves heavy with engineering tomes, the air scented with wax and old paper. Inspector Japp, nursing a cup of tea, leaned against a bookcase. "Croft's locked up, Poirot," he said, his voice gruff. "Case closed, surely. Your mechanical rod trick was a corker." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Mon ami, the case is closed only when all threads are tied. Croft killed Thorn, oui, but others played roles, knowingly or not. The little grey cells, they demand the full truth." Poirot's first task was to delve deeper into the suspects' backgrounds, seeking the roots of their actions. He started with Bertram Hargrove, whose debts to Victor Slade had surfaced in Chapter 7. In the manor's study, Poirot confronted the young heir, who slouched in a chair, his usual bravado dimmed. "Monsieur Bertrand," Poirot said, his voice soft but piercing, "your argument with Slade in the stables, debts, yes? You sought to destabilize Ironspoke to repay him, perhaps by aiding Croft?" Bertram's cigarette trembled in his hand. "I owed Slade money, yes, gambling debts. He pressed me to sway father toward a merger. I tampered with a map once to make Thorne look incompetent, but I didn't know Croft would kill him." His confession revealed complicity, not murder, but it darkened the web of deceit. Next, Poirot summoned Lydia Voss to the rose garden, where raindrops clung to petals like tears. Her auburn hair was loose, her spectacles fogged. "Mademoiselle," Poirot began, holding her coded journal, "your brother, a former intelligence officer, his visit was no coincidence. Did he guide your actions, perhaps urging you to plant the footprint to mislead?" Lydia's eyes brimmed. "My brother Hans wrote to me, yes. He feared for my safety under Thorne's threats. I planted the footprint to confuse any investigation, hoping to protect myself. But I swear, I didn't know Croft's plan." Her admission clarified her role as a pawn, driven by fear, not malice. Lady Evelyn Hargrove was next, her elegance strained as she sat in the drawing-room, her pearls dull in the morning light. Poirot produced the locket with Thorne's photograph. "Madame, your affair with Thorne was a motive for silence, non? Did you supply the sedative, perhaps unknowingly aiding Croft?" Evelyn's hands shook, her voice low. "I ended things with Elias years ago, but he wouldn't let go. He demanded I convince Reginald to fund a private venture, linked to the gold, I suspect. I slipped a sedative into his tisane at dinner just to calm him, not to kill. I didn't know Croft would use it." Her confession painted her as an unwitting accomplice, her heart tangled in past passion. Victor Slade, summoned to the library, maintained his predatory smirk. "Monsieur Slade," Poirot said, holding the incriminating telegram, "you orchestrated chaos to weaken Ironspoke for your merger. Did you manipulate Croft, knowing his hatred for Thorne?" Slade's eyes narrowed. "I saw an opportunity. Croft's anger was obvious. I hinted he could prove himself by exposing Thorne's flaws. I didn't expect murder, but it suited my plans." His cold admission confirmed his role as a puppeteer, pulling strings from afar. Sir Reginald Hargrove, last to be questioned, stood by the manor's fireplace, his beard streaked with grey, his authority diminished. "Monsieur," Poirot said, "your embezzlement drove Thorne's paranoia. Did you suspect his treasure discovery, perhaps encouraging Croft to act?" Sir Reginald's voice was hoarse. "I took funds to save Ironspoke, yes. Thorne confronted me, threatening to expose me unless I backed his treasure hunt. I told Croft of Thorne's accusations, hoping he'd discredit him. I never meant murder." His confession revealed desperation, not violence. A new clue emerged when Poirot revisited the office, now under police guard. Examining the desk, he found a hidden drawer, missed earlier, containing a letter from Thorne to Croft. "Your gear patent is mine unless you comply." This confirmed Croft's motive. Thorne had stolen his invention, fueling rage. But another find. A second teacup, hidden under papers, bore traces of the same sedative, suggesting 2 doses were prepared. Had Croft planned for another target, or was it a backup? Poirot's investigation took him to the Foundry's archives, where he uncovered a Hargrove family journal from 1815. It detailed the gold cache, hidden during wartime to fund industrial expansion. its location encoded in maps Thorne had deciphered. This solidified the treasure's reality, tying all suspects to its lure. A red herring surfaced when Japp found a vial of cyanide in Slade's hotel room, suggesting a poisoning plot. But tests confirmed it was unrelated, Slade's personal stash for industrial espionage, not murder. Poirot dismissed it, focusing on the sedative's source. The breakthrough came when Poirot re-examined the vent. A faint scratch inside matched the mechanical rod's tip, and a trace of Croft's unique lab oil sealed the connection. But a second mark, a thread of silk not Evelyn's, suggested another presence. Lydia admitted to climbing the vent to plant evidence, her small frame just fitting, but she insisted she left before the murder. To test his theory, Poirot staged a final confrontation in the manor's great hall, rain drumming outside. The suspects gathered, their faces taut. "Mes amis," Poirot began, pacing. "Croft killed Thorne, but you all played parts. Bertram tampered maps for Slade's gain. Lydia planted false clues, driven by fear. Evelyn sedated Thorne, unwittingly aiding Croft. Slade fanned the flames of rivalry. Sir Reginald's secrets sparked Thorne's obsession." He held up the rod. Croft's device, extended through the vent, stabbed Thorne after sedation. The elevator key ensured access. The string trick locked the room, but the treasure united you all in greed. Bertram confessed his tampering, Lydia her planting, Evelyn her sedative. Slade admitted manipulation, Sir Reginald his embezzlement. Each faced charges, conspiracy, fraud, obstruction, but Croft alone bore the murder. As constables led them away, Poirot stood by the hall's window, rain streaking the glass. "The little grey cells, they see all," he murmured. Japp clapped his shoulder. "You've outdone yourself, Poirot. Ironspoke's cleansed." The foundry's fires burned on, but the shadows of deceit were fading, justice illuminating the truth. Chapter 9. The Final Confrontation. The fifth day at Ironspoke Works dawned with a brittle clarity, the storm's remnants leaving puddles that reflected the foundry's glowing furnaces like scattered embers. The air thrummed with the relentless clang of machinery, but a deeper tension pulsed through the Hargrove Manor, where Hercule Poirot prepared to close the net around the truth. Dr. Harlan Croft's confession had solved the locked-room murder of Elias Thorne, stabbed via a mechanical rod through a vent, sedated to ensure compliance. But the web of complicity among the suspects demanded a final reckoning. The treasure map, the sedative, the tangled motives of greed, revenge, and betrayal, all converged in this moment. Poirot, his grey cells alight, stood ready to orchestrate the final confrontation, ensuring no shadow escaped justice. In the manor's great hall, Poirot assembled the players under the watchful eyes of ancestral portraits. The vast room, with its vaulted ceiling and stained-glass windows, felt like a courtroom, the flickering chandelier casting jagged shadows. Sir Reginald Hargrove stood by the fireplace, his bearded face etched with defeat. Bertram Hargrove slouched against a pillar, his cigarette unlit, his bravado gone. Lydia Voss sat rigidly, her spectacles glinting, her hands clutching a handkerchief. Lady Evelyn Hargrove, her elegance frayed, twisted her pearls nervously. Victor Slade, ever the outsider, leaned against the wall, his smirk faded but defiant. Dr. Croft, handcuffed and guarded by Inspector Japp and two constables, glowered from a corner, his confession still raw. The air crackled with anticipation, the foundry's distant roar a fitting underscore to the drama. Poirot paced the hall's polished floor, his potent leather shoes clicking with deliberate rhythm. Mes amis, he began, his voice steady and resonant. The murder of Elias Thorne was a crime of precision, but also of collaboration. Each of you played a role, knowingly or not, in this tragedy. Today, Hercule Poirot lays bare the truth so that justice may be complete. He held up the treasure map, its Hargrove watermark gleaming in the candlelight. This map, hidden in Thorne's office, revealed a cache of gold in the foundry's foundations, a secret that drove Thorne's paranoia and your actions. Let us reconstruct the crime, step by step. Poirot turned to Dr. Croft, whose spectacles flashed with defiance. Monsieur Croft, you are the architect of this murder. Thorne stole your gear patent, threatening your career. You drugged his tisane with a sedative from your lab, administered at dinner, 10 p.m. to dull his senses. At 2 a.m., you used the elevator override key, hidden in your lab, to reach the office. Your mechanical rod, extended through the vent, unbolted the balcony door as a feint, but you entered via the elevator. You stabbed Thorne with his letter opener, then used a string trick, threaded through the keyhole, to lock the door from outside, retrieving it later. Croft snarled. You've said this already, Poirot. I confessed. What more do you want? Poirot's smile was serene. The whole truth, monsieur. You acted alone in the act, but others fed the fire. He faced Bertram Hargrove, whose hands trembled. Monsieur Bertram, your debts to Victor Slade drove you to tamper with Thorne's maps, hoping to discredit him and push your father toward a merger. Your cigarette butt near the stairs was a clumsy attempt to shift blame, placed hours before the murder. You did not kill, but your actions sowed chaos. Bertram's voice was hoarse. I only wanted control of Ironspoke. I didn't know Croft would go so far. Poirot turned to Lydia Voss, her face pale. Mademoiselle, your fear of Thorne's blackmail, your forged papers, your brother's espionage, led you to plant the smudged footprint and tamper with a map. You entered the office at 1 a.m., as Miss Wren saw, to mislead us. Your journal's code revealed your brother's advice, but you did not strike the fatal blow. Lydia sobbed. I wanted to protect myself, not harm Elias. Lady Evelyn was next, her composure crumbling. Poirot held up the locket. Madame, your affair with Thorne turned sour when he demanded your influence. You slipped sedative into his tisane, believing it would calm his threats. You walked the grounds at midnight, leaving the silk scrap in the chute, perhaps checking on him. You aided Croft unwittingly. Evelyn's voice broke. I thought it was harmless, a sleeping draught. I never meant for this. Poirot faced Victor Slade, whose eyes were cold. Monsieur Slade, you manipulated from afar. Your telegram to a rival firm, your pressure on Bertram, your hints to Croft about Thorne's flaws. You orchestrated instability to seize Ironspoke. You returned at 1 a.m. as the stable hand saw, to ensure your plan unfolded. Slade shrugged. Business, Poirot. I didn't touch Thorne. Finally, Poirot addressed Sir Reginald, whose shoulders sagged. Monsieur, your embezzlement fueled Thorne's suspicions. You shared his accusations with Croft, hoping to discredit him. The treasure, real and hidden, was your family's shame, and Thorne's discovery threatened exposure. Sir Reginald's voice was a whisper. I wanted to save Ironspoke, not destroy it. Poirot stepped to the centre, his voice rising. The locked room was no mystery to a mind like Croft's. The vent, the rod, the string trick, engineering made it possible. But the treasure united you all in greed and fear. Thorne's dying act, altering coordinates to spell Croft, named his killer. A new clue had emerged that morning. A worker found a second mechanical rod in the foundry scrap pile, its tip matching the vent's scratch. It bore Croft's initials, etched faintly, confirming his craftsmanship. Poirot displayed it, silencing Croft's protests. "You tested multiple devices, no?" ensuring perfection. Croft's defiance broke. "I wanted the gold too. Thorne's maps pointed the way, but he'd never share. I had to act." Japp signalled the constables, who tightened their grip on Croft. "You're done, Croft," Japp said. "Conspiracy charges for the rest. Tampering, obstruction, fraud." Bertram slumped, facing debt fraud. Lydia wept, her forged papers exposed. Evelyn's reputation lay in tatters, her complicity noted. Slade was detained for conspiracy, his merger dreams crushed. Sir Reginald, shamed, agreed to cooperate with financial audits. Poirot addressed them one last time. "The little grey cells, they see through deception. You each played a part, but justice is served. Ironspoke will heal, its fires burning clean." As the suspects were led away, the hall fell silent, save for the distant foundry hum. Japp clapped Poirot's shoulder. "You've done it again, Poirot. That rod trick, devilish." Poirot nodded, gazing at the rain-streaked windows. "The truth, mon ami, it is like iron, forged in fire, unyielding in the end." The confrontation ended, but Poirot lingered, ensuring every motive was laid bare. The treasure, real but untouched, would be recovered by authorities, restoring Ironspoke's honour. The locked room, once a puzzle, was now a solved equation. Its secrets melted away like slag in the foundry's heat. Chapter 10. Resolution and Farewell. The sixth and final day at Ironspoke Works broke with a rare clarity, the sun piercing the lingering haze of smoke to illuminate the foundry's vast expanse. The furnaces hummed steadily, their fires now symbols of renewal rather than deceit, as the last echoes of the storm faded into memory. Hercule Poirot stood on the manor's terrace, his impeccable suit untouched by the industrial grit, surveying the scene where mystery had unfolded. Elias Thorne's murder, solved as the work of Dr. Harlan Croft, aided unwittingly by accomplices driven by greed for hidden Hargrove gold, had been laid bare in the Great Hall's confrontation. Confessions secured, arrests made, the little Belgian detective felt the satisfaction of order restored. Yet, resolution demanded one final act, the recovery of the treasure and Poirot's departure, tying every loose thread with precision. In the manor's library, Poirot met with Inspector Japp, whose bowler hat rested on the desk amid stacks of affidavits. "Poirot, you've wrapped it up neatly," Japp said, lighting his pipe. "Croft's in custody, charged with murder. The others, Bertram for fraud, Lydia for obstruction, Evelyn for aiding, Slade for conspiracy, Sir Reginald cooperating on embezzlement. Scotland Yard's impressed." Poirot nodded, twirling his moustache. "The method, mon ami, it was key. Croft's mechanical rod, extended through the vent to deliver the fatal stab. The sedative from his lab to immobilize Thorne. The string trick to lock the door remotely. The elevator override ensured access. The planted footprint misled. But the motive, Thorne's theft of Croft's patent, coupled with the gold's lure, sealed it. Thorne's dying code in the map coordinates spelled Croft. His final accusation. Japp chuckled. That cartographic code, clever. And the accomplices? Each confessed their roles, Poirot replied. Bertram tampered maps for Slade's merger scheme. Lydia planted clues out of fear. Evelyn administered the initial sedative in misguided passion. Slade manipulated from shadows. Sir Reginald's desperation ignited the spark. Justice touches all. The day's first task was the treasure's recovery. Poirot, Japp, and a team of engineers descended into the foundry's foundations via a disused tunnel, guided by Thorne's hidden map. The air grew thick with dust and the tang of rust as they navigated crumbling passages. lanterns casting flickering light on iron supports, etched with Hargrove initials from centuries past. "Here," Poirot said, pointing to a sealed chamber marked with faded script. Workers pried open the iron door, revealing crates of gold sovereigns and ingots, untouched since the Napoleonic era. Enough to salvage Ironspoke's fortunes and fund reparations. Sir Reginald, present under guard, gasped. "My ancestors' safeguard! It's real!" The discovery vindicated Thorne's obsession. His tampered maps a desperate bid to protect the secret from saboteurs. Authorities catalogued the hoard, allocating portions for victims' families and Ironspoke's revival, ensuring the gold's curse ended with justice. Poirot oversaw Croft's formal handover to police wagons outside the administrative building. The engineer, shackled, met Poirot's gaze with resignation. "You saw through my engineering," Croft muttered. "Thorne deserved it. He ruined me." Poirot's voice was firm. "No one deserves murder, monsieur. Your genius twisted to darkness. The little grey cells prevail over cunning." As Croft was driven away, Poirot turned to the remaining suspects, gathered in the manor's drawing room for final statements. Bertram, pale and humbled, signed documents admitting his tampering. "I sought power, not blood," he said. "Father, forgive me." Sir Reginald nodded gravely, his empire secure, but his legacy scarred. Lydia Voss, tears drying, clutched her spectacles. "I acted from survival, Monsieur Poirot. My past in Germany. It haunts me." Poirot offered a gentle nod. "Redemption begins with truth, mademoiselle." Lady Evelyn, her pearls subdued, whispered, "My folly with Thorne. It ends here." She faced social ruin, but legal leniency for her unwitting role. Victor Slade, defiant to the last, was escorted out. "Business evolves, Poirot. Ironspoke will rise anew, without me." His conspiracy charges promised prison, curbing his ambitions. With statements complete, Poirot addressed the group one final time. "This affair of Ironspoke teaches us, secrets, like iron, forge strength or shatter under pressure. Thorne's death was tragedy, but from it comes clarity. Go forth, and let order guide you." The manor emptied, leaving Poirot and Japp to reflect by the terrace. "What now, Poirot?" Japp asked. "Back to London?" "Oui," Poirot replied, his eyes on the horizon. "A tisane, perhaps, and the next puzzle. But Ironspoke, it endures." As evening fell, Poirot boarded the train at the nearby station, the landscape shifting from industrial sprawl to London's familiar fog. George awaited with his bags, the journey home a quiet triumph. In Whitehaven Mansions, Poirot settled into his symmetric apartment, the case files archived. "Another victory for the grey cells," he murmured, sipping tisane. Yet a postscript arrived days later, Sir Reginald's letter, thanking Poirot and enclosing a gold ingot as a token, melted down for charity, per Poirot's request. Ironspoke thrived under new management. Bertram reformed, the treasure's legacy one of renewal. Poirot gazed out his window at the bustling city, the mystery resolved, order restored. The cartographer's death, once an impossible enigma, was now a tale of deduction's power.